Dr. TJ, thank you so much for coming on the show. It means the world to have you on here. You're the CEO of AvePoint, which is an impressive company, a public company, and we'll get into that. But you have a remarkable story, particularly around the day of 9/11. I would love for you to tell that story if you'd be willing.
Yeah, well, thank you, Prabhu, for having us on this chat here. Yeah, 9/11, it's a eventful day for most people that went through it. For me personally, I was working with Lehman Brothers at the time, and my office is 40th floor of World Trade Center 1. I was actually on the way to work was at the Jersey City waterfront, trying to cross the river when the first building was hit. But from the New Jersey side, things didn't look that terribly because the plane was hit from the east side. So Jersey's looking from west side to east. And then as I was still trying to figure out how to cross the river, everyone there saw the second plane hit the South Tower. It's an incredible, surreal experience. My girlfriend at the time, she was working downtown, and it took her till 2 a.m. to get home. And luckily, everyone on my floor survived on the 40th floor of World Trade Center 1. And then everyone had to scramble to establish Jersey City as the new trade floor and operations hub for all the Wall Street companies. And for me, it really brought a sense of uncertainty in life. And, you should never take anything for granted, but also don't need to just walk the normal path of what people typically think of as a success, work for big companies, work on Wall Street. So I decided to actually leave Wall Street and go back to graduate school at NYU, and started with business school first, and then transitioned to a full doctorate degree in data mining and machine learning. And in parallel, started the company called AvePoint.
And did you also get a master's of philosophy while you were doing that?
It's a PhD. So a PhD stands for Doctorate for Philosophy. So it's not
Oh,
really
I see.
philosophy.
I see.
It's
I
data
see.
mining and machine learning. Yeah,
Okay, cool. Well, that must have been an experience that completely changed your outlook on life, right?
absolutely. It was unreal. I still remember, when the both buildings were, on fire. From Jersey City side, it didn't look terribly. And then I was walking away from the river, put my colleague into the first taxi we can find, because at the time everyone's pager went off, and you hear Pentagon, you hear Pennsylvania plane down. Of course, F-15 was flying overhead, and looks like we're in a war zone. But I was walking back home, and then I start to see people crying, and then I turn around, the first tower were gone. So that was an incredible experience to see, something that just taken for granted for all this time can just disappear in a blink of an eye. So yeah, it's a life-changing experience for me personally, and that sets on my journey for entrepreneurship.
And you started AvePoint that same year, right?
That's right, around the same time. My very dear friend and co-founder at AvePoint, Kai Gong, we met at Lucent Bell Labs. That was my first job out of Cornell Engineering. And he, like many people, got laid off around that same time, thousands of people. He also wanted to do something different, instead of being a cog in a large company and don't know what happened to your own kind of life. Things are decided by, the fortune of the company. He started the business and pulled me in. So we co-founded AvePoint back around 2000, end of 2001. That's the start of the business.
And what was AvePoint back then?
Oh, it was a B2B software company. Back then, you had to deliver software on CD. For the
Yeah.
first 3 years, we got zero revenue. Trying to give this, we were in the email backup space. And back then, Exchange backup is already a very crowded of a space. We were just giving people free software to try to use. Kai was working full-time in Somerset Public Library. Everybody there knows him. He has this desk that he's always there. I was in grad school, so at least we have some stipend as a PhD student. So those were tough years. Everyone have to work hard, and we got our lucky break in 2003 when Microsoft rolled out second version of this product called SharePoint. We decided to cover SharePoint in the first version because it happened to use the same data format as the backup for Exchange. And then the second version, Microsoft did not have a migration path because back then Microsoft's first version of software is not that great. So the second version, it's a significant upgrade, and the data format is completely different from flat file format to then SQL relational database. So that migration path is quite difficult, and we were always known to be a company that bite off the toughest bone, and we decided to be the first one to actually cover that solution. That put us on the map. And allow everyone to come to us as a vendor of choice. The story was actually quite funny. And Microsoft do this TechEd, which is their biggest technology trade show every year, where it announced the second version. And at the migration workshop, Microsoft said that there's no migration path because they thought the first version there were not enough customers. Of course, their biggest partner and customers like Dell and HP were up in arms because they actually used the first version. And we were the first one to raise our hand at the trade show and say, hey, we actually can migrate you. And we posted flyers everywhere around the trade show. In fact, we didn't have a product ready. We developed the product over the weekend. And then the head of Microsoft SharePoint, Jeff Teeper, came to our booth and said, do you have a product? We said, of course we do. We can show it to you. Over a weekend, we developed it. And then we flew over to Redmond to actually showcase the solution on a desktop. Kai had to carry his desktop tower all the way, booking the cheapest possible flight from Newark to Seattle, double hop to get there, and then showcase to Microsoft. From then on, they refer a customer to us, and that really puts on the map. And so in the enterprise B2B software segment, it's about reputation, it's about technical capabilities, because customers will actually do POCs to make sure that the product does what the label says on the tin. So that really allow us to become a brand. And then since then, we never looked back. We had 8 straight years of exponential growth in the on-prem world, and then we shifted in the cloud world. Now we're the largest B2B SaaS data management and governance provider in the Microsoft cloud space, and now we're public. So it's been a long 20+ year journey.
Yeah, it's an incredible journey, and to get that blessing from Microsoft must have just been game changing. I mean, what did that feel like? All of a sudden, like Microsoft is like, "Hey, everyone use AvePoint to solve this problem." That must have been incredible.
Well, that's just the very early days, right? In the software space, everything moves very fast. I often say, in the software space, a year is eternity. So yes, in the beginning, Microsoft said, "Hey, there's no other vendor that covers this functionality. There's a little Somerset, New Jersey company called AvePoint that does this." But obviously, leveraging that, we have to expand very rapidly into many other things. So today, we're a platform provider, right? We do the end-to-end lifecycle management of business data. Migration is only the beginning of the journey. And then, of course, after that, we do also data backup, data archiving, compliance, data privacy, and then we then get into the whole vertical solution space. So it's a journey. But yes, we got our first break with one product. But in the software space, if you only rely on that one product, very quickly other people will overtake you and quickly commoditize your offering. So that actually sets off a journey of continuous innovation and evolution. And we actually have to cannibalize our own product over time to time, especially this transition to cloud, in order to stay relevant, in order to matter.
Yeah, I want to talk about the transition to cloud because that was a big thing. What are we thinking? Like 2012, 2013, that really became a thing? Or what were you guys thinking about it before then?
We started in 2010. So there are things in life where that's also happy accidents, right?
Yeah.
So because we were in the SharePoint space, and SharePoint's enterprise content management, it's very heavy, and customers are government and very large banks and manufacturing regulated industry, we had to expand globally. So before cloud, we were already in these major markets, that's tier 1 B2B markets like Japan, UK, Australia, Germany, France, Nordics, in person with our local teams and local hires. So that was a faithful decision, one. And then two is 2010, Microsoft started to have BPOS, which is a precursor to today's Office 365, M365 cloud. And we were investing there, and people were thinking we were crazy. Our investor at the time, which is Series A Summit Partners, they say, "Hey, Microsoft, you recall back then, Steve Ballmer was still the CEO. And
Mm-hmm.
under Steve Ballmer, Microsoft stock didn't move for 10 years. So there were a lot of naysayers on what Microsoft's future would be and what the cloud would be. At that point, the only notable SaaS company in the world was Salesforce and NetSuite. So and they were also trading not very high multiples. I think at the depth of 2008, 2009 recession, Salesforce was trading at 1.25x revenue. So, if you start looking backwards, there were a lot of, essentially the despair, right? Valley of despair before technology really take off. So we were in early days because we were technologists at the heart. Me and my co-founder were all developers and tech people. We talk to customers all the time. So we know where the real needs are, where the market trends are. So we say, hey, this cloud thing is real and we need to invest into it now. I still remember I was at a Microsoft global partner conference in DC in 2011. I was on stage and telling everyone, hey, this cloud thing is real and be prepared to make $1 a user a month, that kind of paradigm to transition your revenue. And a lot of people think I was crazy as well, because back then, everybody sells software as perpetual, right? A large bucket of money, and then maintenance, right? Annual maintenance, 15%, 20%, et cetera. So people are not thinking about subscription, consumption-based business model.
Yeah, that is fascinating. And then did the industry really start to recognize that you were right, like 2 or 3 years later?
No, I think it's more around 2015, 2016
Really?
time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, people start to see it. It's for us, we're lucky we undergo this transition as a business and as a technology platform early. And because if you think about it, Provo, the business transition is much harder to do for a perpetual software company because it comes down to cash flows. So if you were to buy a perpetual license, you get, you buy the software, right? Upfront payment and plus the first year maintenance. Let's say the software is $100 and then the maintenance $20 each year, 3-year contract, $60, right? It's total $160 TCV, total contract value. Upfront payment is $120. That same 160 in the subscription model would be divided by 3. So every year you receive $50, right? So $53. So all of a sudden your year one cash in, it's 120 in the old model versus 53. And yet as a software company, all the costs still there, right? The people, the G&A, the infrastructure costs, all of those don't just magically go away. And the salespeople also expect to continue to make commission, right? Not just their base salary. So that cash crunch is what most companies that go through this SaaS subscription are really challenged with. So it's not just a technology upgrade of putting your software in the cloud, and let alone you talk about DevOps, continuous integration, continuous deployment, cloud operation, cloud security. That's a whole set of discipline you have to kind of undertake and become good at. But also from a fundamental cash flow management perspective, it's a very different problem set. So this is why it takes companies a long time to transition. A lot of companies have to borrow money to transition, especially a company in the public world, right? Like Splunk, they went through some really, really tough time. So it's and of course being public is unforgiving, right? When you do that such transition. So luckily we did it while private, and we never borrow money. So we also exercise extreme physical discipline. To date, the company has never borrowed money, and we have a great balance sheet generating cash. So it's a very good position to be in.
Did Steve Ballmer ever dance or scream in front of you?
we saw him dance and scream on stage. We were in the audience, but if that counts, sure.
He's actually an incredible leader. I don't know. Did you get to know him at all through that thing?
Unfortunately, we were too small to matter to Microsoft at that time. But I did get to meet recently with Satya in a very small, like a 5-partner meeting scenario. So I get to meet the new leadership much more, in tune with the leaders of US, APAC, and Satya now than the Ballmer days.
Yeah. We've had both Ballmer and Satya at some events, and both of them are just incredible leaders. Ballmer, obviously, his passion is well known. Let's say that, well known. Hey, so cloud was a big deal and you saw that coming in 2010. I wonder at what point were you thinking like, hey, this AI thing's going to be real?
My background is data mining, machine learning. So it's been my passion around leveraging algorithms to make things more efficient. And we're in the business of data management since day one. So that means access control, that means lifecycle management, who has access to what, where, when, and how do people share data. So this became so that's always been our business, and our customer always worried about data estate, data sovereignty, and how data are passing between companies, between partners, and between borders. So that's something that's always near and dear to our heart. And this thing really come forward during COVID. So when COVID first happened, everyone worked from home. And in order to scale, enterprises have to go to cloud in a hurry. So a lot of enterprise, especially in APAC, that's behind North America and Western Europe in cloud adoption, they were still using VPN, and quickly realized VPN, which is virtual private networks, does not scale to everyone working from home. So going to cloud using SaaS solutions is the only way. So there, a lot of folks jump onto Zoom calls, onto team calls very quickly, and the enterprise say, hey, we need to govern this stuff because we really have no idea what people are sharing with each other when they're working from home and when they're working remotely. So that also became a very, very hot topic. And it was also during that time, during COVID times, so we went public, right? So of course, this AI revolution, we were not surprised at it. We've been a long-time consumer of Azure Cognitive Services and OpenStack AI for a long time. And we built vertical solutions in education space and in government solutions, in document management, record management, knowledge management space for a while. So this AI acceleration, it only strengthens our story of AI-ready information management, because when you talk about AI, it's built on data. Right. So every business is racing towards building their own proprietary data models on top of the foundational data model. And that means you need to actually leverage your legacy domain-specific data to make it more impactful. So ChatGPT is a very powerful tool, but if you use it for your domain-specific knowledge, it's like a summer intern. It's a very smart summer intern, but it has no domain-specific knowledge or company-specific knowledge to really be helpful to your customers and partners and internal. And what companies are doing are racing towards building a layer of proprietary model that leverages decades worth of internal data, emails, files, trouble tickets, workflows, etc., to actually generate actionable AI. So, but the data that you use have to be clean, have to be relevant. Otherwise, it's a trash in, trash out problem. So AI is something that we have always been very familiar with on data mining side. And now, of course, with generative AI, it adds that human element to it. We're very, very excited about it. In fact, we're here in DC. We 2 days of Shift Happens industry conference that we're hosting starting tomorrow. We're going to announce a slew of new capabilities around that exact topic.
That's incredible. So when you hear people say like, hey, AI, like the doomsday sayers, or like AI could like destroy us and destroy the world, what do you think when you hear that? Like when I hear that, my follow-up question is always how, and I never get like a good answer to how that would happen.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a lot of hype around AI. I talked to, so we're actually in the process of creating a research lab, industry corporate sponsor research lab in collaboration with Cornell, New York University, as well as National University of Singapore. I actually talked to a lot of AI experts, academics in the field. We are still a long way off from sentient AI, true general AI. Today's AI is really purpose-built machines. There's really no reasoning. It's all statistic-based approaches. Therefore, you have ChatGPT answers that are just called hallucinations, right? They're not real facts. They're statistical-based guesstimates, right? So far, I think AI is a tool. It's a tool just like any other tool that humankind has invented throughout history to aid our productivity. We see that leveraging AI for ideation, for automated, simple tier 1 support and internal onboarding education, it's a fantastic tool. But when it comes to decision making, when it comes to really mission critical education, information, you have to have a human actor who is an expert, who are able to really validate what the AI is generating. Another good example is GitHub Copilot, which is
Mhm.
Microsoft's tool to help developers generate automatic routines and algorithms to ease their work. We found that this type of thing is really, really good for experts, senior developers. Junior developers, they have no idea how to understand what's being generated. So that's actually very dangerous. In term of not in terms of the the security or those type of doomsday scenarios. They're dangerous in terms of inefficiency and actually fundamental flawed routines, because in cloud world, in the world we live in, everything has a cost. GPU has a cost, CPU has a cost, bandwidth, storage, everything has a cost. So if you're not careful, the automated generated routines will be very costly and prohibitive. It will run your business to the ground. So that's why you have to have experts who actually look at this stuff to make sure that it's indeed good solutions. But it's great ideation tool. So in fact, I'm actually much more hopeful about the advent of this new technology than being depressed about it.
Yeah, that's good to hear. That feels good. Somebody with your background and your expertise there, that feels good. Um, at what point did you decide, hey, we're going to take this thing public, and why did you decide to take it public?
That's a great question. If you ask me now, I would say my only regret is not to take AvePoint public 10 years earlier. But anyway, we decided to go public during the midst of COVID. When COVID first happened, I was as nervous as any other business owners and anyone who are quarantined at home and cannot go. And I've been on the phone all the time with our global leaders. We're in 18 countries, so we see signal across the world. I still remember this was December 2019 because we have offices in Asia, and they have lockdown first, and then they propagate to Europe and US. I say, hey guys, get ready, winter's coming. I still remember that town hall very vividly. And of course, January, end of January, everything's locked down.
Yeah.
So we see that coming, and we were very nervous, but then very quickly we realized business have to move, and of course government is helping businesses move with, in America we have the PPP fund, right? If you remember, so the stimulus. So all of a sudden everybody is using technology in the best way they know how to collaborate and work. And so the use of technology just skyrocketed, right? Everyone saw the birth of Zoom effectively through that process, and they went public. So all tech companies that's associated with online collaboration, teamwork, which include us, became a massive beneficiary of this very disruptive scenario where it encouraged online collaboration and technology work from home. So because of that, our investors and our board decided, hey, we should look at going public, because we're a company that's 20 years. We should have gone public 10 years earlier. Now is a good time to do that. And we have very, very predictable revenue streams, and 60% of our customers are government regulated industry. So highly resilient to these type of economic or exogenous shocks. So it actually made sense for us to do. So we decided to do that. And at the time, we actually did started off as a traditional IPO. We put together syndication of Goldman, as well as Citi, Evercore, and a bunch of other banks. But as you recall, also at the time, 75% of our IPO were done via this vehicle called SPAC, right? Special purpose
Yeah.
acquisition vehicle, which is basically reverse merger. And we checked out that option, and we decided to go with that option because this was October 2020. If your audience recall, this was before the election, right?
Yep.
A month before the election between Biden and Trump. And the vaccine was nowhere in sight despite Operation Warp Speed. So there were a lot of uncertainty and volatility, much more so than today, right?
Right.
And with a SPAC structure, and we were able to pick the best tech SPAC sponsor. The key sponsor were Jeff Epstein, who's the ex-CFO of Oracle, as well as Brad Koenig, who made Goldman Tech Banking what it is today. Brad's first IPO at Goldman Sachs was actually Microsoft. So these two gentlemen were the sponsors, and we decided to partner together. In a matter of 4 weeks, we were able to set a fixed valuation, which is $2 billion, and then set a fixed funding, which is $350 million in the trust, and we raised $140 million in the private investment called PIPE. So together 490 million, and we had zero redemption. So that kind of certainty, that kind of economic outcome was made perfect sense in such time of high uncertainty. So we did it that way, right? So now, of course, 2 year plus out, we're being recognized for our great execution, and we're doing well. We got good support. So, it's really ultimately focusing on execution as a public company going forward.
Yeah, what do you think, like, the way SPACs are being talked about now? Because I remember when they were being talked about when you did it, it was like, this is a really great way to do this. And now I think it might be a bit of a mixed bag in terms of like whether investors and the public market and companies look at that as a real option. What did you learn in that, and what advice do you have for people about SPACs today?
It's not just a mixed bag. You're too kind.
I know, I know, I know. I'm just
SPAC
being
is
kind.
talked as a dirty word. Uh, so yeah, it's we learned a lot from it. Obviously, as I mentioned, we did it just because it made sense for us at the time. And it's if you actually look at the average SPAC right now, I think the average the companies that has got a target and de-SPACed, I think the average stock price right now is something like $1.50 or some less than $2.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
You have Nikola, you have Virgin Galactica, all these pre-revenue companies want to go public, completely ruined that instrument at that segment as a vehicle. So yeah, it's not a good thing. So today, we have shaken off the tent. I remember at the time, one of my good friend at Fidelity was telling me, if you do SPAC, remember it's a 2-year scarlet letter you have to wear. So now we're past our 2-year time as a public company, and we are known as the best SPAC company out there. Although I don't really want to be associated with that term anymore. We just want to be viewed as execution. But yeah, as a concept, it is a good one because it does give certainty, and also the investors do have the right to redeem.
Yeah.
So a lot of broken SPACs are 100% redemption, very high redemption. So there's no money to be raised. So those were the ways to kind of help the investors from going to a bad deal. But nonetheless, there was so much abuse. It's not a viable option anymore for going public.
Well, at this point, for a company like AvePoint, it gets you public. So you're public, and like now, none of that really matters. But moving forward, it probably doesn't make a lot of sense for people to use SPAC as a vehicle, at least as it's currently constructed, to go public. But for you now, like, you're public, right? And you said something interesting a little bit earlier, that you wish you would have gone public 10 years before. Why is that? I don't know that I've ever heard anybody say that. I've always heard, like, man, stay private as long as possible.
Yeah, so that's a that's a great question. It's because now that we're public, we recognize the benefit of being public. So it's very hard to be a public company compared to being a private company, in that you're literally under the this intense scrutiny of the public market. And every 3 months, it's equivalent to doing a final, project report, right? Taking a final, where you're being questioned by all the smartest Wall Street analysts. We have 7 coverage analyst firms, including Goldman, Citi, Evercore, et cetera. So they all have a great detailed data model on your business. And everyone holds you accountable for what you say. You cannot just, talk about growth projections, profitability, willy-nilly. You have to back up with actual performance. And the moment that any one of your metrics are not meeting Wall Street expectations, the street will penalize you with a stock performance. And what's really important is that result, that every 3-month final exam score, it's being viewed by everyone in my company. So everyone feels it, whether we perform well or not well. Every employee have stock in AvePoint, and they see the market reaction. So I think in that sense, it's highly motivating. It's a unifying factor to have everyone in the company to work together to row in the same direction. When we were private, yes, there were quarters that we didn't meet our performance expectations. Yes, I get a lot of heat from the board, And of course, as our senior leadership team feels the underperformance, right? But the difference is in private is that only the senior leadership level that receives the pressure, that feels the day-to-day pressure, versus the entirety of the company that actually feels, the performance of your company through the reaction of the market. That kind of scenario, you cannot be war gamed as a private company. So that's why I appreciate it. It keeps us very, very focused, laser focused on the health of the business, very disciplined on the direction, and also get the entire company to act together. So this is why I wish we had done 10 years earlier, when right before we gone to this whole SaaS subscription, because we were growing for 8 straight years of exponential growth. We had the revenue level to go public. So had we done that, we will be able to access capital markets much more earlier, and we can move things earlier. Because during the transition, as I mentioned, as a private company, we all decided to not take on any debt. So effectively, we were very, very fiscally disciplined. But at the same time, we were going slower than we needed to. So I think now being public, have access to capital markets, and be able to move much faster. For example, we did 4 acquisitions last year. We never done acquisitions before. That allow us to actually grow faster and in a very disciplined way. I think that those factors combined is what I think, being public, it's very, very good experience for companies.
Do you find yourself like the reverse of that is people say, man, you have to think really short term. You have to think in these 3-month windows. You can't take this long term view. It sounds like you are taking a long term view. I mean, in order to do 4 acquisitions, that's a long term view of like the company and how to integrate all that. So what do you say to that? Like those who say like, man, I don't want to be like beholden to every 3 months when I want to be thinking about like 5-10 years down the road.
Yeah, so it's a balance between long-term view as well as short-term execution and this whole performance. I think that balance is also very important. It's a very rigorous process to ensure that our business executes per Wall Street, expectations. That's also communication, very important. So a new job I recognize now being a public company CEO is that now I have a new job on investor relations as well as market, messaging to keep that transparency and the high cadence of messaging where the company is moving. And when you properly message this well, it's important for shareholders to understand and to they're more forgiving, right, when you're messaging well. So I think that's also fundamental to the success of a company. Having said that, we of course are looking at the long-term health and growth of the business. I've been doing this business for 20-something years, and I'm still in my late 40s. Very, very energetic. I'm more excited than ever before. We think the next decade plus will be fantastic, tremendous J growth curve for the company. We're in the right place at the right junction of market conditions. So we are thinking long term, and we are thinking about responsible expansion of our portfolio to help our customers, especially in times of high disruption like this, right, Clint? You talked about AI, you talk about, we also obviously have climate change, we have anti-globalization. There's a lot of volatilities and uncertainties in these climates. But now for business that can move agile, that have global footprint, track record, history, and trust, this concept of social trust and data trust is more important than ever before, because we have now tech that can actually confuse people and give misinformation, or even tech that actually gives hallucinations as answers. So these are very, very interesting times that calls for leadership and responsible guidance towards AI usage. So these are, it forces us to think long term as well.
Yeah, that's super interesting. What have you learned about leadership in your 20 years? Like in 2001, you're building this thing, like you're talking about, you have pagers, you're actually like, it's physical software, all this type of stuff. What have you learned about leadership from then to now? And maybe even from like being a private company to being a public company? What is the difference in leadership there?
Wow, that's a big question. I think, Clint, leadership fundamentally doesn't change, right? Some of the best leadership training come out of military schools, right? West Point, and these are fundamental principles of leadership, of trust, of cohesion, of teamwork, right? Fundamentally, those things do not change. and of course, act by example. But what you also talk about is, what we discuss all the time is we do live in a new paradigm of we have the millennials, right? We have the new generation of folks who are much more socially and environmentally aware. So we talk about diversity inclusion. We talk about having diversity in the workforce to understand the various factors that are impacting us in different countries, in different geos, and in different industries. So the world is becoming more complex. So Clint, that was actually, maybe the question I have for you. If somebody asks you what the future is going to be like, what the next 5 to 10 years will be like in 2010, would your answer be different than today? Right?
Yes, for sure.
Right. So you can, but by 2010, you can sort of know what things are going to be like 5, 10 years from now. Honestly, today in 2023, I have no idea what the next 5 to 10 years is going to be like from now. It's scarily, things are moving so fast, right? You talk about, ChatGPT getting 100 million active users in a couple months. Things are moving so fast. We have to remain very agile. So there, I think the leadership change comes of you really have to have your fingers on the ground, have a pulse on the market. This is why I travel so much, right? I go to Europe, I go to Asia, I stay in US. I have to talk to customers, have to talk to partners, and talk to our teams, and really figure out where the market is moving. So I think today more than ever, leadership means hands-on leadership. You can't be just thinking pure strategy, armchair general. You have to know your customer. This is why tech companies with tech founders are so important. I see so many tech companies that get bought by private equity that are run by CFOs or run by Harvard business graduates that just really Excel masters, black belts, that kind of detached from the actual technology and business environment. That's a dangerous thing to be. I feel leadership today need to be far more hands-on, far more domain knowledge specific to really matter to the company.
Finally, TJ, and again, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been a fascinating conversation. I can talk to you for like another 3 hours, but I want to be respectful of your time here. At CEO.com, we believe the chances one gives are just as important as the chances one takes. And I wonder, when you hear that, who comes to mind as someone who gave you a chance?
That's a great question. I would say my first boss on Wall Street. So I was working at Lehman, first year job out of Cornell engineering. I was working at Lucent Bell Labs, and at that time, it was 97. Bell Lab was the most commonly held stock in America because of Lucent, which is the crown jewel of AT&T research, if you recall. I went there and quickly realized it's just another telco. It's not a great place for young engineers to develop careers. So 2 years in, I decided to go to Wall Street. First interview, first job, Deutsche Bank. I got the job. The manager at the time, say, hey, you're hired right there. Then my salary in that instant tripled. I was over the moon. I don't know what to do with myself. They gave me the trust to take this kid out of New Jersey and then go to Wall Street. And my career really hasn't been the same since. Operating at a completely different cadence and level that deserves that kind of salary. But what he taught me though is this. First day I was in office is World Trade Center 5 at the time. I had a window view of the fountain in the World Trade Center, that big globe, the Golden Globe. Yeah. And I was feeling very smug because as an immigrant's kid, when I first went to New York City when I was 11, I looked up, all the skyscrapers seemed to touch the sky. And working World Trade Center was a dream come true. I feeling very smug. And he said, well, don't feel so good about yourself. The janitor also works in this building, in World Trade Center. So not to, belittle the janitorial job, but what he's trying to say is that, it doesn't really matter where you work. It's what you do with your work that really matters. Ever since then, I don't care where I work. I can work in trailer park. I can work on library. I can work in basements. I don't care. It's what I feel passionate. I feel I'm making a difference. do the things that I do. So I think that's a very important piece of advice this person gave me on my first job on Wall Street.
TJ, thank you so much. That's incredible. Talking to you has been incredible. Congrats on everything you've done over the past 20 years with AvePoint. Enjoy Washington, D.C. and this conference that you're going to over the next 2 days, and we'll be in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Clint.